It's Monday, September 8th, and today's storm could bring a couple of surprises. And that storm is going to be within this marginal risk right over the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle, even over spreading parts of southern Kansas as well. Then, on top of that, we have some widespread thunderstorms expected all the way from the southwest up until the US Canada border in parts of Minnesota and the Great Lakes region. And then I do think we could see some stronger weather even north of our marginal risk, even going all the way up into the Dakotas. And today's risk is mostly going to be fueled by that damaging wind threat. Within this risk highlighted right here, we could see some 60-mile-an-hour damaging winds. And one of the surprises with this storm is that I actually do think we could see some isolated 70-mile-an-hour damaging gust as well. And then our threat of seeing some large hail covers that pretty much entire same area as our wind risk, pretty much within that marginal risk confined area. Then I actually do think we could see some more surprises with hail being even larger than depicted here, maybe even being in that 2-inch in diameter range. And here's what the radar is going to look like with these storms today, showing some initiation potentially even by the mid-afternoon hours, and it's going to be brought by some redevelopment along a low pressure system from yesterday's storms, and also a bit of a shortwave trough and elongated low pressure system moving through. And pretty quickly, we're going to see a bit of an explosion of convection along the Kansas Oklahoma border, more in parts of western Oklahoma. And these storms could potentially have some discrete nature to them. This would mean some larger hail, so potentially in that 2-inch in diameter range, and then some isolated damaging gusts. I wouldn't be surprised to see some 60 to 70-mile-an-hour damaging gust within these storms as well. And then I actually think there is a non-zero tornado potential today. So that's definitely something to look out for. And I do think all hazards of severe weather could be possible, but it's mostly going to be a hail and damaging wind threat. And then these storms would last all the way through the low level jet kicking in. That is potentially when we could see that tornado potential maximized. Then right after that, right around the later hours, around 10 p.m., these storms are going to have dissolved almost entirely. And then another surprise with this storm system is that we could actually get some stronger storms, even all the way up here in parts of Nebraska and even South Dakota, associated with a bit of a shortwave moving through, a lot of convergence, indicating some frontal activity here as well, and then even kind of a lingering low pressure system. Will these storms be severe? Probably not, but this is just another area where we could potentially see some strong thunderstorms today. And with these storms, we're actually going to have the small potential for some flash flooding. Within all of these marginal risks, we could potentially see 1 to 2 inches of rain. So not a very big threat of flash flooding, but it's definitely still there. And you're going to want to stay weather aware if you're in any of these marginal risks. One being down here in the southern plains, another one being up here in parts of the northern Midwest and Great Lakes region, then another one being in central and southern Florida. And then the temperatures across the country today are actually going to be really, really nice. Really nothing breaking that 90s range. I'd only expect to see that down here, and of course the desert southwest, South Texas, and then parts of southern Florida. But pretty much everywhere else is going to be in that mid 80s to mid 70s, feels like temperatures range. And even out here in the Pacific, which has been seeing some pretty warm weather, you're actually going to get to see a cool down as a bit of a trough moves through the region, potentially even reaching some high 60s feels like temperatures. And then that invest, which at one point was expected to be in Tropical Storm Gabrielle, has completely dissolved, and now we are not expecting to see any hurricanes out here in the Atlantic for at least the next week. So that's very good news. But moving back to severe weather, this is a better look at that big trough pushing through, which is going to bring a lot of our severe weather today. And then that big trough that has been bringing a lot of our severe weather is going to be pretty much gone, and it's going to be more of a short wave kind of in its wake, which is going to be the main causer today. We'll see this short wave pushing through up here in Nebraska, bringing a lot of flow and even an additional kink in our jet stream down here in our main risk area, bringing those storms to that western Oklahoma and Texas panhandle region. That's going to be the main initiator. And after our storms are initiated, this is the environment that they're going to have to work with. So a pretty moist environment, 63 dew point, and then somewhat unstable around 2100 Cape. So that's definitely enough for severe weather to be possible. But a couple other things to note is that we are going to have some more favorable shear today, which would be a indicator of seeing some more organized storms. We have some wind veering, and we also have 40 knots of bulk shear, which is one of the reasons why I do think we could see a surprise large hail threat, likely being in that 2-inch in diameter range, because we will see some stronger updrafts. And with these more organized storms, there's just that heightened risk of seeing all hazards of severe weather. Now, that tornado risk is going to be a bit smaller because our cloud base is going to be a bit higher than we'd like to see over that 1 kilometer above the surface threshold. But if these storms could get a little bit more surface based, which I definitely think could happen, and when they are able to interact with that low level jet, I think we could potentially see that risk of tornadoes become realized, although it's still going to be a pretty small risk. But other things indicating that we do have some curvature in our hodograph, and then also our shear isn't going to be that terrible for that to happen as well. Now, for our damaging wind threat, we do have some dry air loft and then a downdraft cape around 1400 and a precipitable water of 1.5 inches. So all things indicating that as well. So I definitely do think all hazards of severe weather are going to be in play for our main risk area in that Oklahoma and Texas panhandle region.